thing, and Surapon will start first, and then I will talk about result discussion and also to critique this paper. Okay, if Surapon is ready, you can start now.
Okay. Good afternoon, guys. Everyone can hear me well? Well, today we will talk about the mistreatment among the medical school based on the study just published in the JAMA Internal Medicine. So literally, I was shocked when I saw the result, specifically in the current our modern society, and even in the high-income countries such in US. So if you close your eye for a second and thinking about a medical school or even in our pharmacy school, what are you feeling? And for many of us, a medical school, including other healthcare professional school, was an exhilarating, if challenging time. So we were learning of what we felt like the deepest secret of the human body, including a medication and treatment for our longevity, right? But that's okay. No one ever said a healthcare professional school, in particularly among the medicines or a med school, was supposed to be easy, right? But for too many med students, their kind of a med school is not simply atmosphere, right? An environment where around them, any corner, there might be someone who will demean, be little, or even harass, confront you. Of course, we living in a world full of a judgment, hypocrite, and the way we walk, the way we talk, and the way we learn, we get judged by people who don't people who we don't even know them. Specifically, is the main proponent of judgment. So we judge other easily, right? The way we judge men or women, the way we judge slim or plus size people, and the way we judge their surface trait, right? So I just want to kind of talk about just a little bit before we go to the main article. We let's take a look for something about the mistreatment that you should know before we talking about this article, and what it is the mistreatment and how frequently does it occur in our community. Oops, sorry, come late. And here is the professor who just addressed this issue. So let me listen of what them just address about this issue with regard to the mistreatment.
ต่อหนึ่งไม่ได้ยินเสียงดีเนาะเนาะเด็กไม่ได้ยินเสียงมันมีเสียง
อ้าว
สงสัยต้องไปเข้าใน YouTube ไหม
Sorry for a mistake. I just want to wrap up. Actually, the mistreatment of a med student is one of those things that you hear a lot of, but you might not know what the term mistreatment really means, especially those in marginalized. Here, you can see the prevalence of mistreatments according to the perpetrator group among the med student. As you can see, apart from the stranger, friends, university staff member exerted power over medical student and most often committed mistreatment by humiliating students. As you can see, they're quite a little bit of significant in terms of a difference among women and men, right? And before we go to the main article, what is the gap of knowledge that they kind of mentioned? In the previous study, they just found that a parallel study, they limit by a small number of the included participants and conducted only one or a few sites, and a large national representative sample, including a wide breadth of a mistreatment type, even in terms of a theoretically confirmed in the concept of mistreatment, or even a mistreatment by acting. So they just focus, in this study, they focus on the connection between the membership in the marginalized group. They would like to highlight or underscore among those who in a marginalized and what they perceive about the mistreatment by their faculty member. So to closing the gap of knowledge, they aim to examine the prevalence and type of mistreatment that reported by a large national cohort. Actually, they conduct in terms of a cross-sectional study among the medical students in the US. They kind of would like to separate among the sexual orientation or even the ethnicity or race among the US medical students. So this study, they plan to collect the data among the medical students. They just look back to the survey among the 2016-2017, and they collect the data based on the AAMC GQ. Actually, is kind of a routine collected data among a med student who graduated from the over 100 accredited allopathic medical school in the US. So the question encompass about the student demographic, education, experience, finance, or even career plan. And the item assess about of what mistreatment will be and about of what they perceive with the mistreatment. That including a negative behavior by a medical school faculty, nurses, residents, and intern, and even additional institutional employee or staff and other students. And three types of discrimination in terms of based on the gender, race, and ethnicity will be included in this study. So here, the exact, for example, the mistreatment question will be included based on the mistreatment act or based on the perceived or the mistreatment. For example, in one section, there asks about to indicate the frequency which they have personally experienced a series of behavior such as being publicly embarrassment or humiliated, being threatened with both physically or mentally harm, and even being physically harmed, being required to perform personal services, and being subjected to unwanted sexual advance. And here are the major type of mistreatment in this study. We can simplify into a 5 type of a negative behavior and the 3 type of discrimination based on the demographic of the med student. And for the exclusion for this study, they exclude the participant who which did not participate in the AAMC GQ questionnaire, and don't and for a person who doesn't have any data on the general negative behavior or discrimination will be excluded, and the race or ethnicity or even race was not reported at all, also excluded too. And the last one, among who didn't answer about the sexual orientation, they will be excluding that too. And for the data collected, they included based on the participant characteristic demographic such as sex. They classify as a male or female, but the sexual orientation will be kind of a open question, including a gay, lesbian, or a bisexual. But they didn't mention about the in terms of kind of someone who will be kind of a queer or something like that. They didn't mention about that issue. And the race or ethnicity will be classified as a white, Caucasian, Asian, or who are under represented minority. That would be kind of like of Indian or a First Native in the U.S., American Indian, Alaska Native, or even Black African American or Hispanic or Latino. They will be grouped as a underrepresented minority. And the sexual orientation that I mentioned earlier, they will be simplified, classified as a heterosexual, or they didn't use in terms of a homosexual. I think they would they would like to keep based on their participant perceive about of what they are, such as a lesbian, gay, or bisexual. And to simplify the data presentation, they will categorize the question based on the 4-point scale, never, once, occasionally, or frequency, into 3 points, such as never, once, or more than once. Even they also dichotomize the variable into once and more than once, kind of a yes or no. And for the statistical analysis, they use a Pearson chi-square or Fisher-Isaacs test to test for the null hypothesis across the prevalence or frequency of the self-reported mistreatment and the total number. And the Bonferroni correlation also used to account for the multiple comparison. And they use a corrected alpha kind of a 0.2 to 0.0025. And the interaction term among the underrepresented minority status and sex were also analyzed. They use logistic segregation to test the significant level at the p-value less than 0.05. And the study will also use the setup program and SPSS program to obtain the predicted probability after logistic segregation. And
Next.
Okay, let's look at the results of the study. Because this study, they would like to evaluate the prevalence of the mistreatment of the medical students in 2016 and 2017. From the beginning, they have more than 30,000 students. And then what happened is that, of course, they have somebody who did not respond on the mistreatment questions, which about 10.3%. And in these 10.3%, 80% of them did not answer all of the mistreatment questions. So they excluded them from the analysis. And they looked at the difference between respondents and non-respondents. And you can see that the non-respondents were more likely to be male, Asian, underrepresented of the minorities and multiracial medical students. And finally, they have about 72.1% of the students who represent these data sets. Okay, next slide. And when you look at this table, the table 1, they explain the percentage of the characteristic of the student cohort here. And you can see that about a little bit more than half are male, about 51.5%. And the race ethnicity here mostly are white, about like 60%, and then Asian. So then you can see that medical doctors are very popular for Asian population in the US, and also minority is 8.8%, and the least other, okay, and unknown, okay. And when you look at the sexual orientation, mostly they said they were heterosexual or straight people, 93.7%, and LGBT for 5.3%. The age of them mostly really young age, right? Because they just finished medical school and mostly in between 24 to 29 years old, which is like 82.654% of all. Okay. And let's look at the result of the mistreatment. So they actually separate the results regarding the category. The first one is sex. They divide the participants into male and female, and to see the difference of the prevalence of being mistreatment. The first part, they talk about the general mistreatment, and the second part, they talk about a specific question for each category. And you can see that most of the percentage between male and female in each category were statistically significant. For example, publicly humiliated for male never is 80.5%, but for female is less, like 77.1%. So let's see, ever is 19.5% in male, and female, of course, higher in 22.9%. And also in other items, mostly female had more mistreatment compared to male. including physically harmed, and no, not in physically harmed is not significant, but subject to unwanted sexual advances like 6.8% versus 1.3%. And another one is, I think you probably have heard in Thailand also, is asked to exchange sexual favors for grades, for better grades. So this is not actually for once female is more than male, but forever is like not different. Okay, so most of the prevalence are different, but only for some of the items are not significant. And let's look at another point for sex. You can see like gender-based discrimination. For example, like women look, when they look to go for further like study, they see deny opportunity of training. So you can see that female got denied more than male. So it's like 6.7 versus 4.7, which is significant, and also subjected to sexist remarks or names. So that's women get like ever like much higher, like 24.3 versus 3.4% in male. And also another thing is like receive lower evaluation of grades because of sex, right? Because of they being female, it's like 6.8% versus 4.6%. And the number of mistreatment types, when you look like ever experience, like female feel that or perceive that they have mistreatment for 40.9% compared to male, which is like 25.2%, and it's significant. Okay, so let's look at another category, which is ethnicity, race or ethnicity. For general mistreatment, they separate in white, Asian, URM, and also multiracial. And when you look at the prevalence for the p-value, for example, like humiliation, you can see that the lowest in the white and the highest here is in the URM. URM is minority, which Surapon talked already about, like being like Alaskan or Indian in very small number of people here in this study. And also like treated with physical harm is significant. Physically harm also significant. The lowest is go to white people, and the highest mostly in the URM group and multiracial group. Okay, so this is the result from this study. Okay, let's look at the next slide, which is going to be the racial and ethnicity-based discrimination. And the question look the same in sex, right? So you can see that all of the variables are statistically significant, and mostly highest also in the URM group. And the highest that you can see here, for example, like receive lower evaluation of grades because of they are, or they perceive that because they are the URM, like 23.3%, 9.6%, and the lowest in white students. And number of mistreatment types also the highest in the URM. Okay, so this is the summarize of this slide is that the URM students, they perceive that they have more mistreatment than other ethnicity, especially white, which is give the data that they have very small or low, the lowest of all this mistreatment. Okay, and the last group, they talk about the LGBT medical students, and the LGBT, they actually have only 1,400 or about 5%, right? And all of them, most of them, like over 94% are the heterosexual medical students. And you can see that the LGBT group had higher prevalence of the mistreatment in the general mistreatment, like all of them except for the acts to exchange sexual favor for grades, which is not significant in compared to heterosexual. So to summarize in this slide said that the LGBT group, they perceive that they have more like general mistreatment compared to heterosexual students. Okay. And next slide talked about the sexual orientation based discrimination, and all of the prevalence significantly, compare from LGBT to the heterosexual students. And you can see the percentage that LGBT, they feel more mistreatment, especially like subject to offensive remarks or names related to sexual orientation, like 21.8% compared to 0.8% in the heterosexual, and also receive the lower evaluation of grades, which they feel that they have this mistreatment for 4% compared to 0.3% in heterosexual medical students. And the number of mistreatment, of course, the higher in the highest prevalence is in the LGBT group, is like 43.5% compared to 23.6%. If you can see this, you can see that the LGBT group of students, they feel or they perceive that they were mistreated compared to heterosexual students. Okay. So this is like all the slide for the results. So for the finding summary, you can see that there are high prevalences of medical students being mistreated. Okay, and the differences in the prevalence of mistreatment, you can see like female, right, and other ethnicity rather than white, and also the LGBT groups, they have more like mistreated compared to the comparison group. And injurious interaction that they make interaction analysis, they found that this is interesting, like female who are being minority, they have the highest prevalence of the discrimination and also mistreatment compared to male white. Okay, so this is like remarkable results here. And several particular harmful behavior remains common in medical school. And if you read more literature, they found that there are more medical school students, they had depression and suicide idea, and also the suicide rates is higher compared to general population. And also there are like unwanted sexual advances between male and female, and lower evaluation secondary to bias and discrimination in female, URM, and also in LGBT, being subjected to sexist or bigoted comments. And with the bigoted comment, it's the negative consequences, right? Both on people who are targeted or the bystanders, including reports on depression, fear, anger, and low self-esteem and low job satisfaction, decrease of productivity in medical students, and also the work-related depression. When spoken to medical faculty and supervising residents represent a form of negative role modeling. It means that if they are mistreated by the faculty's member or or these residents or other staff, that's going to be like negative role modeling for the medical student in the future. Okay. And they also may miss the opportunity or lower grades because of this discrimination and the chance of them, right, to get a better grades or to have a chance for more training in the future. So they may miss that opportunity due to the discrimination. And incremental consequences like small advantage can accumulate over time and prevent career advancement in some groups of medical students. And women and racial ethnicity minority are less likely than their counterparts to be promoted and receive academic awards or honors. Okay, and higher proportion of female, Asian, underrepresented minorities, multiracial, and LGBT experience 2 or more types of mistreatment compared to white or heterosexual counterparts. Okay. So looks like, let's look at the limitation of this study, because this study, they ask about the memory of the student in the past. So maybe this can have some bias for this study. Okay. And the mistreatment, sometimes they left school before they have a chance to answer the questionnaire. So this may not represent people who left before they answer the questionnaire. Male, Asian, URM, and multiracial students were overrepresented in this data, because they, like from the first result, they talk about the exclusion of the participants, and so this study, they said that they talk about the generalizability, that these people, like 10.3%, they don't have the respondent. Okay. And also diverse backgrounds were combined to create the URM multiracial or LGBT categories, which may obscure differences because they sum up, they did not analyze separately, like Alaskan or Indian, they just combine them. So the result, the combination, like for the URM or multiracials. Okay. And this study, they use a self-report. So it's more like perception of that person, which the result may have some kind of different result. It's up to how the people who perceive or feel about their mistreated in the medical school. Okay. So let's look at the implication and future direction. So since we can see that the prevalence is so high in medical school, and they need the future intervention to reduce the medical student mistreatment, which would benefit by incorporating strategies to address bias and discrimination in medical education. So future studies should further explore the sources of mistreatment and how the mistreatment source affect student well-being. So that's very important. Okay. And this is the conclusion slide here. We read in this paper, and they said that medical student mistreatment remains common. Common means like very high prevalence. And women, racial, ethnicity of the minorities, and sexual minorities appear to experience a disproportionate burden of mistreatment. And its substantial implication for the medical school learning environment and the diversity of physician workforce. It means that we should have, because in the US, they said they should have this diversity of the workforce from every, racial, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and sex in the medical field. Okay, so that's the conclusion of this study. Okay, now we will go for the discussion. And if anyone who wants to participate, you can raise your hand and you can speak up. Okay, so Ajahn Surapon.
So after we finish with the main article, so I feel like I have to say it, for this is unacceptable, right? But how about in terms of our community, particularly among the pharmacy school? What will be faces with the mistreatment among our school? And before we go to the open question, I just have some topic or some issue that I would like to discuss with you guys, such as when we will reach a gender equality. Because as you see in this paper, it's kind of like it's sort of like a disparity among a gender or even sexual orientation, right? So do you guys had any idea or any question?
Let's start from the very easy question. Do you think that pharmacy school, we have gender equality in pharmacy school? Do you think that male and female are treated the same in pharmacy school? What do you guys think? Because in this study, they said that women they perceived that they were mistreated compared to male, right? So that's kind of, it seems like it's not equal in gender in medical school in the US. What about in Thailand? What do you think about this issue about gender equality in pharmacy school? Do you think you can raise your hand? I just would like to see. Do you think, how many of you think that we are equal between male and female? I just talk about male and female first, and then we will talk about LGBT and heterosexual group of students. Okay. What about female and male?
We mean in terms of equal in terms of a human being, right?
Mhm.
It's not just equal, such a symbol.
Nice. Okay. อาจารย์ภาควิภาค่ะ
Please.
Hi, I'm Pavipa Ka.
I cannot hear you. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yep. So my name is Pavipa Sunaprom Ka. So regarding to this paper, I really enjoy it because it's just something that it just like alarm to let us think about this issue about this mistreated and something about inequalities. So going back to your questions about gender equalities in our school, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about the pictures on the second floor of Akan Chalerm Pakiat that we hang pictures of our deans and former deans. And by look at those pictures, I see more male than female being elected as dean of the School of Pharmacy, Chiang Mai Universities. Even though looking at the list of faculties, majorities of faculties are female, but the deans are male. So what does it mean? So I'm not quite okay with the fact that they are more likely to be male. Is it because they are more they are smarter? Is it because they are more active? I'm not quite sure about that issue, but just by looking at this statistic, I don't think it's gender equalities in our School of Pharmacy. Yep.
Actually, when talk about the governments, alignments, or like the leaders in the world, before we probably had more male, but in this past maybe years, we saw more, or we see more of female who are very strong, being like, for example, like New Zealand Prime Minister, or Angela Merkel in Germany, or some other Taiwanese president. I think a lot of female, they actually take roles, except for Thailand. Okay, but anyway, and that's kind of coming for me. I think the equality for male and female in that kind of CEO, especially in country like Thailand, in my opinion, still majority are male, and maybe in almost all of the step or the level of the CEO in Thailand still mostly male. This compared to our neighbors, like in Asian countries, maybe the same, but I don't have exact number. But in our school, to give you some more idea, we have more female students compared to male. I mean, students, we have maybe like over 80% of female and less than 20% of male in our school. Yeah, but okay. So what's this
I'm
this
sorry.
slide?
So I'm just thinking about what you are saying is that when we are thinking about mistreated in Thailand or being a victim of being humiliated in public, I think one thing that I observe is that in Thailand, we are always being treated by being like อ้วน เตี้ย ดำ ไม่สวย and most of them are subjected to female. It's most likely it's coming like that, and when we are and people who are being called or being treated like that, like me, I mean, I'm being made joke like that for all, you know, but being like that, people always laughing and said, oh, they just like ล้อเล่นเฉยๆ So we are so familiar, we are so get used to the point that this is just common, it's just a joke. But in reality, people who are being mistreated, it's hurt. I mean, in somehow it's hurt, and it affects how people are so perceived as themselves. Not just, you know, the confidence, everything is coming by that. And that may be something that is playing a role, that being a woman, being a female or woman is being like kind of superior in a society in somehow. So and that reflects in every level. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I being me, I don't think this is a situation that we should be discussed until I went out of this country to be on the other land that they are so give us so much respect. And they are not willing to take this kind of criticism. And being this criticism society and being superior plays important roles in how people mistreated someone. And that's my thought on this issue. Thank you so much.
Sometimes I think like yes, please. Anyone want to share about this?
I totally agree with Ajahn Phak Vipat. No one's supposed to be perceived or even judged based on their sexual biology. Kind of light of they kind of light of such an accepted lie for me. No one's supposed to be judged based on their sex, or even based on their sexual orientation, or even race or anything. No one's supposed to be perceived like that.
I actually agree with all of you. I mean, both of you. But in Thai culture, that sometimes I think when people first, after you did not or don't see each other for a while, and when you see someone, the first word that they greet, like อ้วนขึ้นเปล่า or เฮ้ย yeah. See, so this is kind of how people greet each other in Thailand, and sometimes I think that's very sensitive, and this they don't do in other countries. I'm not sure about, you know, like, because I've been in the US and people don't talk to you like this when they see you, but in Thailand sometimes people like greet people with how you look today, or how you look, or sometimes like, oh, ช่วงนี้ไปไหนมาทำไมดูแบบ you know, like, you know, something like that. So anyway, so being dark or in Thailand, I think sometimes make people feel humiliated. And for me, I think it's up to your also your self-esteem. That's very important. Like Ajahn Phakvipa, I think sometimes she humiliate herself. not we humiliate her. She humiliate herself because she feel it like funny. So what? Something like that. So I think that's more important. That's more important. But anyway, so what was this slide? Surapon.
Just remind Ajahn Phakvipa said before, the more you gain like higher faculty ranking, the more the proportion will be a male, right? But like Ajahn Phakvipa said, it's kind of like a contrast when compared in Thailand, right? We had a dean, I think more than a half, right?
Dean male 73.9%
Yeah.
compared to
It's
male.
kind of like a contradict to the US faculty.
But we have more female librarian. You can see. Okay, so this is like gender equality, right? I would like to hear from our students.
Student, please.
Anyone like feel like you are being mistreated because of your gender or your sexual orientation? If you can tell us, yeah. Any of you, for your experience, or you are bystander, like you hear someone being humiliated? Any of you? You can raise your hand. Okay, Rangsima, please.
Hello. I like to share my experience, and it is not like a pharmacy school, but in my real life. Can I? Yeah. ก็คือ I think like we have friends that we all have many friends like girl and boys. I think the way we treat and the way we talk is different. I don't know what is it. I don't know what other group do, but my group, or I see what I see in normal or maybe in my socials, it's like we all have a little of like patriarchy, sometimes like that. I think when we talk, we also have a little patriarchy. For example, when I play a games, people may be like, "Are you a girl? You don't have to be good because you're a girl. Because girls doesn't play game, and girls don't have to play good because you're a girl." Something like that. But it's not. อาจจะไม่เกี่ยวกับเภสัชมากนะคะ
Go on.
And another issue is that I would like to raise is about the dressing, because I think in a working place, women have to wear a skirt or maybe long skirt, but men can wear pants, because it is a uniform of our gender. Yeah, if this is a uniform of a sex of yours, your sex in Thailand. If you are a woman and you wear a pants, they think you are inappropriate because but even in a ward like hospital ward, if you are a nurse or a doctor, sometimes you have to wear a skirt, even it's uncomfortable or maybe uncomfortable. I don't know. You do not have your comfortable in your work or your activity. If the one most careless, example is the police. Like we see it in the news, like the call for if a woman, you have to wear a skirt, even you have to run in a skirt. Yeah, something like that.
You know, before it 200 BC, kind of like in terms of the historical, a skirt or even a high heel belonged to a man before.
Yeah, I know that. So I think why is the table has turned into our gender, and it stick for a many long time, like in our norms, in our ความเชื่อประมาณนี้ค่ะว่าแบบต้องใส่ตลอดนะไม่งั้นคุณก็จะเป็นคนที่ผิดต่อหลักสังคมอะไรประมาณนี้
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Panyawat.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I am in Ransima group. Maybe she talked about me.
No.
just kidding. In my opinion, I agree with Ajahn Mu นะครับ that she said discrimination is always happen to the girls and LGBTQ is the same. But I believe that nowadays we are in social movement that we are going to be equality. I mean that really equality in the future. And about our pharmacy school, I have never seen about discrimination because sometimes a girl is a leader because we have so many girls in our faculty, really. And my friends, all of my friends in this faculty treat me the same, even I am an LGBTQ, and all of teachers treat me the same thing that they treat the others. So I believe that in our pharmacy school, never have an discrimination, and we are equality.
Thank you. And I'm so glad to hear that. But in real life, when you go and work out of school,
Yes.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about. Yeah, maybe some places have a discrimination. I'm not sure.
But for me, I think that maybe our community will based on a selection bias or a natural selection. We input
Yes.
just only a special group, right? For a simple question, do we have a transgender in our faculty, or even we have a kind of a unisex, a restroom?
I have ever seen one transgender in our faculty. She
or even our university.
Yes. And in our faculty, I believe that we have so many LGBTQ. I think that the reason why we don't have an discrimination because so many people are female and LGBTQ. Yes, I think.
Just for your information, we used to think about to have a unisex bathroom for our transgender students, but it actually on the fifth floor, and nobody runs. Nobody runs to the fifth floor bathroom because maybe you cannot reach there. That's probably like too hard for them to get to the bathroom upstairs. But anyway, we actually think about it before about the unisex bathroom.
Yes.
But for Panyamat, I think that's a very good point. For me, myself, we used to talk about how female students should wear the dress, and also the transgender students, whether they can wear like skirt to school. In our past, our students who are transgenders, they wear skirt to school.
Yes.
Too. Yeah, we had that before. So,
10 years ago, before I'm graduate, I saw that Ajahn Mui mentioned.
And we always call them like beautiful. You know, they are very so beautiful, and
Yeah.
some of them like they go to the pageant of Miss Tiffany.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and all of them are so like good looking, and they are very smart, and they are very good students. Like they do good in school and all the activities in school, and I just love that. But anyway, now I don't see our transgender students like wear skirt anymore. I don't know what happened, but so that's like I saw the difference from the old days. But anyway, let's move on because we don't have much time, you know?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else would like to share?
So is this the next question? How to eliminate mistreatment in the classrooms? So let's talk in general how to eliminate.
But actually, don't be serious with my question. If you would like to share any other that you just want to share with us, please.
Anyone would like to share how to, even eliminate the mistreatments in anywhere? If you see or you have experienced mistreated in your real life, your own life, can you share or to say how to eliminate this in our society? For example, like in many countries, women who are hired in the same position with male, they got less salary compared to male. In most countries in the world. So how do we eliminate that? How do women get the same pay, like payment of their income compared to male? What do you think? And in some workplace, they don't like to have women because they think when women come to work, sometimes they do like more leaves, like, when they will deliver the babies, they will have like 3 months leaves or something like that. And some of them, they don't like to have more women in the workplace. So.
And also some department, they also had kind of like a old fashioned based on the sort of such a surgery department, right? I personally think that would be based on the kind of a martial thing, or something like that. The majority will be male, right? In that department.
I saw in my life, I saw only 2 heart surgeons who are female in Lampang. In Lampang Hospital. I just saw them like just a couple of years ago. And before that, never ever seen in my life to see heart surgeon as a woman, and also like a neurosurgeon as a woman. I haven't seen even one in my life. So this is maybe like occupied by male. I mean, like some occupation, sometimes they prefer to have male as their employee or to train male more than female, right? So I'm not sure about pharmacies, whether we have a specific job that prefer male in any job. But as I remember, I don't see like different like in medical school, like in specialty. Most of specialty in medical school now, they have more female than male. Like in our school, when compared to in the history before that, male and female kind of half and half. But now there are more female compared to male in all medical school in Thailand, and also in our pharmacy school. We are like female are majority of population. Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's why they have more female go into some very rare specialty in the past that they accept only male. Okay. So why do you think the difference between male and female, that they select only male in some of specialty? You think like male can do better job on like surgery in hearts and brain? Any comments on this? Okay, อาจารย์หมูค่ะ
I just have an idea, but don't want to interrupt you. Maybe like, can we hear from like student first, or what? Or should I go? Because we run out of time. So let me do
You
that.
can go.
Yeah. So I think regarding to your questions, there are many things to be considered in some occupation or some specialties. It requires lots of physical strength, like orthopedics, like surgery, something like that. I mean, it requires like lots of physical strength, and in some occupation like that, I think it's reasonable to have like majority of them are male, not female, and that one of the reason. And secondly, and when we look at gender roles and responsibilities, it's not only regarding to occupation only, but we have to think about societal responsibilities or family responsibilities as well. And it's more than the workplace. Like, for example, for women, they have to, in some age of life, they have to get married, they have to have kids, they have to raise their kids, and they have to be the main person who taking care of like things around. And when we get older, we have our parents to be taken care of. And that's also like women's responsibilities as a caregiver as well. And by being interrupted between, the sequel of life, they cannot like fully committed to the job that they're handling. So that even though they are smart or somehow they have to be, waging or, have to think about other things, and maybe they got disrupted or interrupted by along the way. So they could not get rapidly promoted, thinking about male responsibilities. They're just focusing on their job because they are breadwinner. And that is one thing that we have to think about: societal responsibilities, societal expectations of gender responsibilities as well. In that case, many things playing roles in how women or when male are perceived as being promoted in occupation.
Thanks, Professor Mo. So let's move to another topic. We have only 2 more minutes.
Before we go to that issue, I just want the student know that we mentioned about the issue because for me, the kind of like the other limitation with respect to this study, the kind of lack of information based on the specialty.
So let's move to the next part. Okay.
In fact, go back to the question of how to eliminate a mistreatment in classroom. In fact, we don't have any absolute answer to solve this problem, right? But for me, the first thing we should address this issue, and we also respect the other person as a person and as human being, right? And sometimes we can't solve based on their self-esteem, right? But if we address and respect, for me, I think that's kind of like a key issue to get and facing with this issue. So sometimes we can stop to judging the other person, right? But we should know we don't cross a line based on their biology, such as sex or sexual orientation or race or something like that. Sometimes we think it doesn't big deal. Just a joke, but some person it doesn't joke anymore. Such a when we call someone like a male, young, or something like that. Anyone has an idea or would like to share in how to eliminate mistreatment? I think they kind of like a responsibility for both of us in terms of a student like you or even an instructor like me.
So actually, we don't have much of time, but this slide is a very good slide for this is how to eliminate the mistreatment in society. The most important thing is respect to others. That's very important. It doesn't matter the color of the skin, or it doesn't matter how you prefer your sexual orientation, or it doesn't matter whether you are male or female. I think you have a chance to have opportunity to have advance in your career, and also you should have a chance to do what you can do best. And I think everyone, if you have a chance, you can do anything if you put your heart and your effort. So that's my motto in my life. I think everyone is the same. And that's very important, especially in school when you have like teachers and students like in different, like power to each other. That somehow will cross the line. But anyway, you need to talk or address that issue. If anyone hurt you, I think that's very important to tell that person to them directly that you don't like it and you want them to stop. So that's, I think, that's very important. Okay, so let's move to. We have a next topic about how to critique this paper, and we did not go through all that. this paper you should use the stroke statement for cross-sectional study and to critique that how good of this paper and whether this paper has some flaws or limitation, and would you believe the result of the study, how they conduct, and the generalizability of this study. I just put the example of part of the statement, but in your presentation, I think we need to go through some of the topics, which is very important part to critique this paper, and also how they present the results, whether it's like go along with the objectives of the study. And the last part is most of all they talk about discussion and the information about the conflict of interest, especially some other paper that they talk about the conflict of interest and how this paper cannot be generalized to other people beside the population of this study. So today we just want to stop here and would like to hear about the presentation that we actually has done today, and would like to Ajahn to give some advice to our student for the presentation for their own study and presentation. Let's start from any Ajahn ka. Chen Ajahn ka. Let's talk about the presentation today. What good, what should be like adjust to be a better presentation or discussion, and also the participants' role. อาจารย์หมูอีกรอบนึง
Well, first of all, I think the paper is interesting. The good thing is it's easy to read. But the weakness is when we think about questions to be asked or point of discussions. For people who didn't prepare well, it's hard to give to answer your questions because it needs prompt response, and it has to come from your own experience and explain how to do it. Comparing to some other paper, which might talking about therapy or treatment guideline or something like that. In that way, it has some context that you can bring in and do discussion. So when think about it, easy paper, but needs lots of imagination and needs lots of idea to throw in. When you choose your paper, you have to think about your audience as well. Like the content, do the audience will be able to jump into discussion easily. So that's what about the paper. Secondly, talking about questions. The question is quite big. I mean, I call it big because it can be anything. But for our audience here, they are quite familiar with specific questions. So when you think about the way that you're going to throw in discussion, I mean, we have to think about how we can, just like walk up to the stairs, step by step, start from easy questions and lead them and guide them until you reach your key questions. By doing that, you might need to have some stock questions, some explanation, in your pocket in order to do that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And my third comments here is be careful because now our presenters, they're sitting in the same room and there are echoes, noise like all the time. Like when you're doing your own presentation, you might want to feel, to be more comfortable, to feel like you are, on the same team by sitting together in the same place. By doing that, you have to think about how you can reduce the echo voice and the noise that will come all the time. So that's something to keep in mind for me first. for response for this presentation. Thank you so much. But I think it's wonderful to have this example.
Thanks for your question.
อาจารย์ค่ะ Any comments to students for the presentation and the participants?
Do we have to do participants as well? I think I have to thank our two students, Rangsima and Panyawat, for jumping into discussion, even though, I mean, and that's something, it's just something that you're going to keep the class energized. Like me, I mean, I have been waiting for a while, but it's so quiet. So I need to do something. And I'm so impatient to wait. So that's why I jump into discussion. And I don't want the class to be like this. The class participations mean everyone has to put some energy into the bucket and let the energy of the class run. So I mean, if you think, I mean, anything that you can voice, like, first, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand your question. Secondly, I'm not quite certain about this part of the paper. What does this mean? These kind of questions you can bring into discussion as well, you know, to let the energy goes into the class. So I'm expected to hear more from students and into this participation. And I have to thank Rangsima that sometimes she couldn't think about English in terms of expressing herself. It's okay to jump back into Thai, and we all know, but at least we want to know that you try to improve your English. And in my like orientation, in my small section, everyone want to improve their English in this class. And I think it is opportunities here to, you know, from the second year, being second year students, a pharmacy student, you haven't used English for a long time. And this is another chance, you know, why don't you use it and enjoy it? You know, the more you do it, the more frequently it will be like more fluent in the futures. And that's my feedback for the students as clients in the class.
Other comments? For me, first of all, the video doesn't work. So the video that you try to play did not work. So that's one thing that you have to test before you present anything. When you added some videos. Second, you can notice that we don't talk about this paper at all. นอกเรื่อง This paper hasn't not really talked about, right? So because the moderator is so bad, the moderator go away from this paper. So it's very important that you should bring people back as a presenter. You need to discuss about the concept and everything in the paper first. And then other topic, you can just kind of take them back to the paper. And then you need to summarize all the, you know, when after we finish that question and the comments from the audience, you need to summarize what have been learned from that part of the questions. So I think that's very important. And thanks Rangsima and Panyawat really, because I think very brave students today. And today I think we did not do a good job of try to use, you know, some easy question for anyone to participate or urge people to talk more. So that you need some techniques to do in your presentation. I think that's very important. And for the participants, the first thing you need to read the paper. So when you read the paper, you will have a point to talk to your friends. So, and you can contribute what you think about in that paper according to contents and also methodology, and also you know, a lot of points that you found interesting in the paper to join with the class. think that's very important for the participant to read first. Yeah. Okay. Any other question and comments? No more? Okay. What about students? You have any question regarding this class? No more question? Clear? Everything is clear?
Let me go.
Anyway, okay. So thanks everyone for joining this seminar today, the demonstration. And because we did not select the paper regarding the pharmacological or seminar in pharmacy, like medication use. So this is kind of a different view of, like medical school mistreatment issues. Anyway, so for the our study in the seminar, it's going to be a little bit different. But atmosphere and stuff like that, I think you should learn how to get to your objectives of each seminar. So every seminar needs to have objectives, and you have to assess whether you have reached your objectives in that particular seminar. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for your participant, and we see you on the 8th of December. And please keep, like I will post when we have any of the announcement. Okay, please keep looking at the KC Bureau. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, ขอบคุณนะคะ